Thank you for joining us at our 2021 Pride Flag Raising Ceremony. On this windy day, it's going to be a great day to raise the flags. They will fly high today. So, my name is Charlotte LaFranc. I'm the Diversity Outreach Coordinator for the Windsor-Essex Children's Aid Society. I will be your MC for today. Just before we begin, we want to do our land acknowledgement. And as we reflect on the land which we gather on today, which is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of Nations, the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi people. And certainly it's hard not to think about what has gone on over the last year. When we think about the unmarked graves of 215 Indigenous children that were found at the site of a former residential school in British Columbia. Since then, more than 6,000 additional grave sites have been uncovered, and we know this is still very much the tip of the iceberg. Certainly the story has faded from the news cycle, but the legacy of harm that has been done is very real and very present. And it is very much connected to why we are here today. Colonization in residential schools forcefully imposed values of heterosexism and homophobia upon Indigenous peoples, along with rigid and oppressive definitions of gender and the gender binary. Prior to the arrival of Europeans, all children were celebrated as gifts from the Creator. Each person had a special place and a special role in society. And as I understand from the teachings I have had the good fortune of learning, there were as many as 5 to 7 words in different Indigenous languages to describe middle genders. These were highly honored people who were valued as gifts, healers, and knowledge keepers. So reclaiming this knowledge is really an important part of this process of truth and reconciliation. As we commit and recommit to upholding all of the calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, as we call upon our governments to ensure that all people in First Nations have clean drinking water, and that justice is restored and inherent rights to Indigenous people, we must also continue actively work, both individually and at the organizational level, to decolonize our thoughts, actions, policies, and practices so that every child, youth, and adult can feel truly honored and revered, so that every child and youth can be proud of who they are exactly as they are. So Pride will continue to play a very important role in our larger journey of decolonization and liberation. As today we stand in support and solidarity with all of our gender and sexually diverse and two-spirit peoples. So we have a very wonderful ceremony for you today. We're going to battle the wind, but it'll be great when the flags go up. Right now I would like to introduce our Executive Director, Derek Drouillard, to bring a welcome and greetings on behalf of the Society.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome. This microphone makes me want to break out a guitar and sing for you, but two small things. I can't play guitar and I don't sing, and so that would be problematic on both levels. So I won't do that. But I do want to welcome all of you today to this our event to raise our pride flag in solidarity of our community. And so I go off script and I tend to ramble, so I'm going to try to stay on script, and but know that we gather today from the heart. We gather because we know we need to do better, act better, and be better, and this is just a small way of us starting to join with the community and having this opportunity to say we're here to be supporters, allies, and in solidarity with the community. So as Pride Month weekend begins in Windsor and Essex County, we are pleased to stand in support and solidarity with our LGBTQ2S+ community. The Windsor-Essex Children's Aid Society is committed to providing services that are open, inclusive, safe, and affirming to all children, youth, and families. The safety and well-being of our children and youth is at the center of everything we do. We recognize that our children and youth have many diverse identities, experiences, and needs. We also recognize that people can experience multiple forms of oppression at once, creating completely unique challenges and experiences. The term intersectionality helps us to understand the complexity of identity and encourage us to be more intentional and equitable in supporting youth and families, and recognizing their gifts and understanding their needs. Last year, we raised the Philadelphia Pride flag to be more inclusive of Black and racialized communities within Pride. We also raised the trans flag to recognize the trans community's continued struggles for visibility and inclusion. This year, we are flying the progressive flag, which brings all these elements together in one cohesive design to represent all aspects of the diverse LGBTQ2S+ community. We believe that all children, youth, families, foster parents, staff, volunteers, community partners should be honored and valued in the fullness for who they are. This flag-raising event is an expression of our commitment to creating safe and affirming spaces for children, youth, and families of all stripes. On behalf of the Windsor-Essex Children's Aid Society, I would like to thank our staff and many partners for taking time to be with us here today. And also, I would like to wish you all a happy Pride 2021. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Derek. All right, so we have a wonderful program for you today, and we're going to kick it off with our first speaker. Each speaker we have today is a trailblazer in their own way, and so we're really lucky to have our first guest, Alexander Reed. Alex uses he, him, and his pronouns. He's a white settler, queer transgender man with a Bachelor of Arts honors in French and a Bachelor of Education with a minor in Women's and Gender Studies. He's the Executive Director of Trans Wellness Ontario, formerly known as We Trans, lovingly to many of us. And he has taken this wonderful organization to new heights this year. The mission of Trans Wellness Ontario is to enhance and sustain the health and wellness of transgender, genderqueer, two-spirit, non-binary, queer, and questioning communities and their families. Amongst the wonderful services they offer include mental health support through counseling, one-on-one peer mentoring, addictions programming, housing, outreach, harm reduction services, educational programming, support groups, a clothing cupboard, and a food bank. We're so thankful to Alex and the great team at Trans Wellness Ontario for all that you do. And welcome, Alex.
Thanks so much, Charlotte. So first I just wanted to say it's really great to not have any hair today so that it's not blowing in my face while I speak. This is the benefits of having a shaved head, especially in the summer. It's great. Anyways, thank you so much for that introduction. Yes, my name's Alex. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm the Executive Director at Trans Wellness Ontario. I'm going to be brief today because I would like to kind of yield the way to some folks who are not white men to speak. But essentially, I really want to talk about the importance of community partners like this, raising the Progress flag in particular, flags that represent the Black and brown communities, flags that represent the queer and trans communities. Because, you know, we had a pride raising in Essex a few months back, and I just wanted to really acknowledge the importance of our community partners showing their pride for our communities. At Trans Wellness Ontario, we have a workspace and we have a community center where we are proud to be ourselves and people can come to work as their authentic selves. And it's so very important that we have that space. And the more people in our community that raise these flags, the more workspaces and the more community centers we have where people know that they can show up to work and they can show up to that community center as a proud queer or trans person. I think that's a really important step that we're taking as a community, is that whenever we fly these flags, people see that not only are we proud of ourselves, but other people are proud that we exist too. I think that's a really important message that we're sending anytime we raise these flags. And when we have community events like this, it just shows that people, especially queer and trans youth of color, can drive by this with their families who may not be supportive, drive by on their school bus at a school that might not be supportive, and see that this organization is proud of them, this organization represents them, and they're there to support them. I think that's a really important message, and so I'm very proud every time we give speeches at flag raisings, because I just think that the message is very clear that Windsor-Essex CAS is proud to represent their employees, the youth and children that they represent, that anyone who's queer and trans can feel safe and can feel welcomed here. So thank you so much for being a community partner. We love and respect everything that you do, and we hope that we can continue to raise this flag and evolve all the new flags that are more representative each and every year. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex, for those inspiring words, and we will continue to try to live up to that vision. So, our next guest speaker, some of you will remember from last year, Nay spoke briefly, and we're excited that Nay were able to join us again. So, Sydney Brouillard-Coyle uses they, them, and near pronouns, and is the education coordinator, non-binary peer mentor, and social media manager at Trans Wellness Ontario. They are currently studying a Bachelor of Music with a minor in Women and Gender Studies at the University of Windsor and graduated from Walkerville Collegiate Institute. They have been engaged in many social justice and political movements and activism since a very young age, and continually seek to raise awareness about the importance of advocacy and allyship. And I think we first met Sydney many years ago through the Windsor Youth Advocacy, Tina will recall, since you were just a wee one, and as fiery and passionate as you are now. So thank you so much for being here, Sid, and we welcome the Human Dynamo, Sydney Brouillard-Coyle.
Thank you. So yes, my name is Sydney. My pronouns are they, them, near, like they, them pronouns, except with an N instead of the TH. And I'm here to talk about how pride flags are a start. So they are an excellent symbol, as Alex said, you know, that it is a symbol of healing, a symbol of progress, a symbol of our commitment to diversity, to inclusion, to celebrating the dignity of every human being, but they are a start for allyship. We like to say that allyship is a subscription to be renewed every single day. And there are many things that we need to discuss when we're talking about allyship, especially with the election coming up. So some of you may not be aware, but of course the Canadian House of Commons recently approved a bill regarding conversion therapy, but now that Parliament is dissolved, that bill is dissolved, which means that conversion therapy is still not outlawed in Canada. And we are talking about conversion therapy as something that essentially tries to convince queer and trans people, especially youth who are most vulnerable to conversion therapy, that they are unloved, that they are unworthy, and that they have to change something about themselves in order to be accepted. And this can lead to major risks, including, self-harm, depression, suicide. I don't need to tell you this because we already know this. But we are in Suicide Prevention Month. We are approaching World Suicide Prevention Day, and we need to talk about actual suicide prevention, which is discussing the issue of conversion therapy and making sure that it is banned across Canada, and other issues, other systemic issues that lead to mental health crises, that lead to suicide. Because suicide prevention is talking about those root issues, about housing insecurity, about food insecurity, about homelessness, lack of employment or underemployment, about intersectionality, racism, queerphobia, transphobia, biphobia, the entire picture of things that prevent people from being able to live full and well lives. And these, when we are talking about allyship and raising the flag, this flag is a start for us to engage in that work, to raise awareness about these issues that are facing the queer and trans community and many other communities that are facing youth, adults. The whole spectrum of humanity needs to come together, especially now, to make sure that people can live as their full, true selves, can be well, and can engage in the world that we have been given, because we have such beauty and diversity here in our community, in our Windsor community, and beyond. And it's important that we celebrate and affirm everybody, and we use this pride flag as a start for further action, that every part of our lives is about raising awareness, is about advocating for those who have been systemically erased and ignored, and lifting up their voices and ensuring that every person knows that they are loved and they are worthy and that they deserve to be their true, full selves. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sid. You said it all, right? Today is a really important day in our year, but it's a start. The work continues, and each year when we put up this flag, it's a chance to reflect on how we've done and what's left to do. Thank you so much, Sydney. All right. Wow. Our next guest is someone that I've had the opportunity to hear speak a few times in the community. Kay Johnson is the Executive Director of Human Rights, Equity and Accessibility at the University of Windsor. Having been in the field of social justice and human rights for over 30 years, Kay has extensive experience organizing conferences from the local to international levels. She's developed and delivered hundreds of workshops for a variety of audiences, from students all the way in JK, all the way up through college and university, to professionals, college and university groups, government officials, and the general public. Kay always brings such wisdom, knowledge, and incredible humanity to the conversation, and we are so thrilled to welcome her to WeCast. Welcome, Kay.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I take the wind as being a sign to say, okay, forget the notes. But I don't want to litter with them either. So, and Sydney, that's a hard act to follow as well, And when you said that it's really that, as you said them all, that there's so much with that really resonates. One of the things that's very important to me is that we have, a lot of times our society requires people to squelch down into whatever is the issue that is at hand. So that if you're going to something that's talking about race, it's like it's only supposed to be about race. We're not supposed to talk about homophobia and sexism and all those things like that because it convolutes things. You go to something that's about feminists and we're really talking about white women because we're not supposed to talk about race or 2S LGBTQ+ or such, and so on and so forth. When we go to things that are LGBTQS+, that we find that it's like, well, no, we're not supposed to talk about race or so on because, or even about, gender and such because this is only about this particular issue and such. And that's one of the things we throw around the word intersectionality a lot. And that's one of the key pieces of that. When we talk about being able to be oneself, then that means being able to be oneself across all these different contexts. And that it's not that you go into a particular context and you're required, not even asked, you're required to leave certain aspects of yourself at the door. When we stop trying to two-dimensionalize people and that we can be 3D or 4D, I'm told that four-dimensional actually exists, but that we can be the well-rounded people that we are and of humanity and such. When I was in Nova Scotia, I used to work with a colleague, Valda, who was a pre-service professor at Mount St. Vincent. And what she used to tell her pre-service teachers is, assume that all of your students are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, until they tell you otherwise. And so for a lot of the ways in which people approach things then, that some of her students who would be, just coming out with all these other sort of our standard society assumptions that everybody's straight, everybody's cisgender and that really changes the way in which people approach their jobs, their lives and such. So even as we say to CAS that following that, to say that assume that all of your families and that all of the children that you service and that are 2S LGBT+, that until they tell you otherwise, that's a good place of start so that people don't have to come out, except for to come out as being straight or cisgender or such, if that's important to them to do. And so I think that those are ways in which we can provide some of the more embracing service to people in the communities and such, because again, it's not what we say, it's a lot of times what we do. And if we have those things that we say the right words, but the ways in which we practice are sending a different message, that's the message that will be received. So again, it resonated about this is a day that you do things, and so it's important for having, the flag raising and the different things. But I'm mindful of Halifax Regional School Board used to have their logo that was about Black History Month, or African Heritage Month as we call it in Nova Scotia. And it was celebrate 1 month, educate 12 months. And so again, if you have where it's throughout the year, that's the most important piece that's there. So again, thank you very much and congratulations.